Sean then will explain the mortgage process and what's involved, and if you have any questions for either of us then at that stage, or any of the staff here, feel free to ask, no problem at all. Just to give you an idea, some of the questions that we're asked on property on a daily basis are, is there an undersupply of property in certain market segments? Now, some of the information I have available here today is from the Sherry Fitzgerald Research Department. So they're taking Ireland, I suppose, and breaking it down per county to give you an outline of what's there. But the percentage of stock of, say, residential property on the market at the moment in North Tipperary, in the county of Tipperary, is 2.4%. So that's basically 2.4% of standing residential stock is currently for sale, and that compares with 1.7%, which is the national average around the country. So Tipperary is fairly well stocked in terms of property available at the moment. Now, that said, there's a shortage in terms of starter homes, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, semi-detached houses generally. So you can probably see that for yourselves, that what comes on the market is selling fairly quickly, and there's not a lot of availability out there at present. And other questions that are being asked are house prices increasing. In the Midlands this year, there has been an increase of 3.8% in terms of prices year to date. Now that's versus an increase last year of 9.3%. There was a bigger increase last year generally, so that can be seen, and I suppose a lot of that was driven by the fact that there were a lot of investors in the market last year buying properties to avail of capital gains tax write-offs and that sort of thing. Is the market being driven by cash buyers? Now, we would estimate this year about 25% of buyers this year will be cash. That compares to 50% last year. So, that has dropped considerably, and that has come about as a result of, I suppose, that finance is available, through banks and building societies more so now than before. Other questions, in effect, is there a two-tier property market in the country, Dublin versus the rest of the country? What we're seeing is the recovery that's happening in Ireland is really, I suppose, in certain areas, certain pockets. It started in Dublin and the commuter belt of Dublin, and then you can be seen in Galway and Cork, and to less an extent as well in Limerick, So we can see the improvement in North Tipperary, but it's not as, I suppose, evident as in other major cities. Certain things that we see, you'll see on the papers, any of you that look at the national media on a daily basis, you'll see generally these are some of the quotes that are on the papers at the moment. New hope for thousands of homeowners as tracker probe is widened. In budget 2016, local property tax is frozen to 2019. Now, that's in stark contrast to what we were all reading back in, I suppose, the newspapers back in autumn 2008 to autumn 2013. So there's a dramatic difference in terms of sentiment on the market now at the moment versus before. As a company, Sherry Fitzgerald Talbot, we, over the last 3 years, in 2013, we would have sold 78 properties in the year. Last year, we would have sold 115 properties, so that was an increase of 47%. Dramatic increase, and again, a lot of that was driven as a result of the capital gains tax write-off there towards the end of last year. This year, we estimated we sell somewhere in the region of about 105 properties in the year. So what is actually happening in the market at present? Sherry Fitzgerald Talbot in Nenagh, or in North Tip, would hold about a 20% market share. We've carried out 65 market appraisals. They're properties that are coming to the market year to date. We've 165 applicants on our database. They're people that are registered looking for properties generally in the area. We've 70 properties listed for sale at the present time, and we've had multiple bidding on numerous properties this year. And this year and last year was the first time we would have seen that happening. Prior to that, we would have been dealing maybe potentially with one buyer, whereas now we're dealing with 2 and possibly 3 in cases. So the market is, there's more heat in the market than before. In 2014, I mentioned we were looking at 50% of our buyers were cash buyers. This year, we estimate 25%. Sales prices this year achieved are closer or in excess of the asking price, and in certain cases we've seen 10% above the asking price being achieved. And that's evident, and I suppose that just shows, it demonstrates a rising market generally. The number of sales that have fallen through have actually reduced. There's not as many of those falling through as before. Now also rents have started to increase in North Tipperary, and with mortgage rates at the current level, it seems to be more viable to buy than to rent at present. And I suppose the question, why are people buying? People are buying in a market that has corrected by over 50%. Interest rates remain low. There's availability of fixed mortgage rates at the moment. They weren't there sometimes in the past. Property is now more affordable as well than in the past, and it makes more sense to buy than rent. Some people that have bought in this market, I'll just give you a quote from two that we have here as well. When my wife had her second child, we had to move from our 2-bedroom apartment. We bought a 4-bedroom semi for a fraction of what the house was on view back at the height of the market. I had a need to buy. There was exceptional value for money to be obtained, and there was better choice available to buy than rent. Purchasing was a no-brainer, really. They're just some of the people that would have bought. Just to give you an example of certain properties we have for sale at the moment, in Nenagh itself, in terms of 3-bedroom semis, we've 8 Riverside, Millersbrook, Nenagh, 3-bedroom semi-detached, C1 energy rated, asking price there 129,500. So it's just to give you a gauge of prices in the general area, just that you'd be able to see what's available and the prices that are there. In terms of new homes, now there's very few new homes being built at the moment in the Nenagh area. There's only 2 developments at the moment, one being Comalto Meadows and the other being Ardán Rua. We have Ardán Rua, we've new homes for sale there, 4-bedroom semi-detached houses. They're the only A3 energy rated houses being built at the moment on sale in Nenagh, and the prices of those start at €179,000 for the semi-detached houses there. And then properties outside of 5 kilometres of Nenagh, an example there, Carrig Ballycommon, we have a 4-bed detached house on a half an acre, asking price $249,500. Now just some of the properties sold over the last 12 months, just to give you an example, and in terms of what they have achieved versus their asking prices and that sort of thing. In Gertland Row, we sold a 4-bedroom 2-storey residence that achieved €10,000 above its asking price. 14 Carrickdurg Ballycommon, a 3-bedroom semi-detached residence that achieved €10,000 above its asking price. And Ballygraig Road, Nenagh, a 4-bed detached residence, achieved its asking price. I conclude by saying the property in North Tipperary has recovered remarkably over the last 24 months. And Nenagh is an excellent business town and is very well positioned in terms of location and demographics to attract top industry from within the country and abroad. I'm just going to pass over to my colleague here, Sean Coffey. Sean will give you an overview. Sean is he's the mortgage manager here. He'll give you an overview of the mortgage process and everything else, and we'll take questions thereafter. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, John. How are you doing? I won't try and be brief. I've actually copied this, so there's a copy here behind you, so in case you lose me halfway, forgive me, but there's copies there. Just some brief touching on a survey that was conducted recently about mortgages in Ireland. It said the main challenges are facing the mortgage market are mainly perceived as lack of housing stock, limits imposed on borrowing by the central bank, which happened in February, and with availability of credit as being deterred. But I say that has all improved. The central bank guidelines, which I'm going to touch on later on, to give you a flavour of how they've impacted on people, but it's curtailed, I'm sure William would say, about house pricing. It was all trying to do to try and curb the surge in house prices that happened back in the late 2000s. The recent survey indicates that now is a good time to buy a house, and in general the banks have improved their mortgage approval process. And I've worked in EBS for the last probably 15 years, and certainly back in 2011, 2012, 2013 it was very hard to get somebody approved, because in truth banks just didn't want to lend. They were nervous of where things were going, and that's steadily improved, and the central bank with their new guidelines have helped that situation. The survey findings show also first time borrowers must be able to demonstrate a savings repayment capacity for at least 6 months, and to be able to show they manage their accounts effectively. The analysis there is on the back of the sheet. Your typical mortgage, if your mortgage is going to be €600 in the morning, you have to be able to show you've got €600 to pay it. So if you're renting, your rent is €600, that covers it. But you just need to be aware of that, because some people wouldn't have it. And most importantly, when you go on websites and you look at repayments, you need to add on nearly about another €150 to what you see actually on the computer, because banks have to stress test the payment. Because what happened back in the time when things turned, they didn't allow for rates changing, and that caught people in addition to everything else. So the banks are stress testing their payment to about 6%. So when you key it onto your computer, it's going to show about 3.7, maybe 4, or maybe higher depending on other banks. For EBS it's 3.7, but what EBS do is they have to go to 6%. That's a requirement. So when you see your payment on your computer, add another 200 to it. And that's what really you need to be able to show, that when you go to the likes of ourselves, hopefully, that you can show that, okay? And say again, there's an example built in to what I've got here in my hand that's available, okay? The survey indicates a strong satisfaction when dealing with EBS, the timing of approving an approval in principle, which I'll touch on in a minute, and converting to a full loan, and most importantly, releasing the funds so you can get your keys. Okay? And the survey obviously gives a positive response into dealing with EBS for their mortgages, because it surveyed they surveyed people who've gone to different banks, and of the banks that were surveyed by people who purchase houses, the EBS came out very good in terms of people's satisfaction levels. In terms of what you need to make a successful mortgage application, it was gone in the day. I was saying to the people I met here this evening that you've gone the day where you could walk in with your cert of income or your P60 or your payslip and be told that you're going to get the loan and just fill in the application and you can walk away. There's a lot more detail to it, particularly in relation to how you manage your current account and your savings record. Savings is important for your deposit. A gift is possible. You know, if you're lucky enough to have that nice parent or family member that's prepared to give you money, that's fair enough. But I say it's important for the actual physical repayment, I said a minute ago, to show that if you got your cheque in the morning and your repayment had to be made, you can basically move that money from your current account to your mortgage. Ensure your current accounts are in order for the last 6 months. An example of what I see processing loans is a couple would be very good in terms of their income. Everything's fine, but we've all guilty of, myself included, that direct debit that just comes out before payday and something else comes out that shouldn't come out. The insurance takes the premium that they said they weren't going to take. Suddenly your account goes into arrears. They're the small things that really can, surprisingly enough, be that thing that go against you when an underwriter's looking at it. So if you have things like that potentially are hitting at that awkward time, we just say maybe talk to the person who you're making that payment to and just move it away from that date. Because account fees is another thing. An account fee hits, you've had that troublesome month where the car broke down and you've had to take that money from the account and suddenly a direct debit hits. They're the small things that can affect you, and just to be aware of it. And I say it's all just about just managing it and having a look at your account before you bring it in. Because there's small adjustments that can be made so that by the time you come to make your mortgage application, it's going to go through. One of the key elements I said is to be able to demonstrate you have the capacity to make the mortgage payment. And I use this and it's in the thing. If your mortgage payment is working out at €700 a month, if your rent is 500, you need to be able to show you're also saving an additional €200 a month. Now that could be a loan that's finishing, so you could have a car loan or something, child going to college, and they're no longer going to college, and so you're able to divert that money that you were paying to them to go with your €500 in rent. And I say it's just, that's one of the key areas I think at the moment. I said about the central bank and their impact on the housing market. The key implications of the central bank back in February were we used to lend up to 92%, even 95%. In the crazy days, it was 100%. The central bank now have said every person must bring 10% of a purchase price to the table, and that should be added on. I suppose your solicitor's fees need to be tagged on to that as well, and any other related fees. So that's a big thing. For second-time buyers, have 20%. The central bank now say that if you've had a home before, if you've purchased it cash, you don't have a problem. But if you've taken out a loan, repaid it, and suddenly going and buying again, you're deemed a second-time buyer, and that's 20%. So that's important. The deposit, I say, can be your own savings or a parental gift or a mix of both. The other thing that they introduced, which was big, was they capped your income. Before, when we looked at a loan, if your salary was warranted repayment, you generally got it. If we felt that you're on a strong enough salary to pay the loan, you got it. But now the central bank brought in, it's 3.5 times your single or joint salary. So again, it's on the sheet there. If we take Sarah's earning 30,000, Michael's earning 25, their cumulative is 55, and times 3.5 is 192,000. So it doesn't matter even if we told you could afford 220. The central bank says we can only lend you 192. It's important. So that's a very easy calculation that you could do for yourselves at home. Just do it out 3.5 times. And they will look at overtime. Your P60 will be a good document to use to give you a good idea of what you're talking about. In terms of how much you can borrow, that indicator is the first step, I think, that when you're looking, whether it's be a house here or hopefully or wherever, or maybe you're doing a family buyout, it's to look at that 3.5 times, and that kind of gives you an indicator whether you're going above yourself, because we have no control. The central bank give us no discretion on that one. But I say obviously then we have an affordability calculator, so we just say come in and meet us. Even after this evening you want to set up an appointment myself, I'll go through it, and we have an affordability calculator based on your set of details, minimalistic information. We can give you a strong indication whether we think the loan will go through, and then what documents you need to bring in to us. With the appointment you can go for an approval in principle, which is confirmation your loan amount is valid for 6 months and can be extended for another 6 if need be. So again, you might be just looking at buying, you want to know what you get, and to give you the purchasing power you can apply for an approval in principle. And say it's based on your income, your 6 months current accounts. There's a checklist that I have here as well. It's at the back of it, and I say it's your application form, but I won't go through it in too much detail, but it tells you there what you need to get that approval in principle. And it's just your purchasing power, so that if you're looking and talking to William, one of the staff, about a house, and you want to know are you in the running for it, that would be your document. William, I'm sure, will testify, or so is Evelyn, that they'd like to know if you're expressing an interest in the house, have you got your loan approved? You're a much better potential purchaser for the lads to go back to their client when they know you're approved than somebody says, well, actually I haven't got my approval yet. So it's a strong step, and it's a document, and it's your finance nailed shut. If anybody, you talk to any of your friends who bought a house, are legal implications that can somewhere be tied up in it that they just didn't foresee or nobody could foresee, getting that finance approved is the big one. And that approval in principle is the secret to that, because you know you've got it. All you've got to do is go out and find a house then that you want to start to be your next family home, or your first family home. What next? We'd like, hopefully, is you set up an appointment and discuss your plans, and we'd love to help you achieve them and put your dream on the right track. Basically, say at the back of the sheet I've done out a sample quote just on a repayment, but it's just tying in with what I mentioned as a couple on the respective salaries to give you an idea of what the repayment is. The EBS have their own calculator on their webpage, you could use that, but we just say maybe come in and set up an appointment. We'd gladly be able to direct you and be able to give you a strong indication of where it sits for you. Thanks for your time. I wish you the best of luck. They're there at the, just here on the table, say, because it just gives a quick overview of that.
Please help yourselves to tea and sandwiches as well, and if you have any questions or anything.